All right, let's bring in Larry Haas. He's in Washington. He is a former White House official, senior fellow at the American Foreign Policy Council. One day to go, my friend. Any predictions?
Oh, that's awfully tough. I will tell you that it will, I am sure, come down to turnout at this point. Good signs for Harris is the fact that there are strong indications that people who are deciding at the last minute are deciding more in her favor than Trump's favor. So that's number one. Number two, with the huge gender gap and many more women favoring her than Trump, and women tend to vote in greater numbers than men here in America. So that's another sign for her. Having said that, it's offset by the fact that she has not nailed down Pennsylvania. It is still neck and neck, anyone's state. Even Michigan looks pretty close. And yet, on the other hand, she's competing in not only Georgia, but North Carolina. So, Todd, there are so many different ways that this could break that I will come back to my first point, which is who gets their people out to the polls in greater number will determine this election.
Hey, Larry, I know you are also following that poll from Iowa. So a Republican
Yes.
strategist texted it to me on the weekend. I was not working, and I get this text, and he said, oh boy, this could be trouble for Trump. We're going to bring it up. It shows Harris leading Trump in Iowa. For Canadian audiences, it's important to point out Donald Trump won Iowa back in 2016. He won it again in 2020. This is a Republican state typically. It is not a Democratic state. This could be an outlier. That's certainly what his campaign is trying to say. It doesn't really mirror what we're seeing in other polls. On the other hand, this poll by the Des Moines Register in Iowa, the newspaper there, typically this is a very credible polling organization for the newspaper. So your thoughts on what this means and doesn't mean, Larry?
Well, it's very interesting. It could show the hidden power of the abortion issue. It is apparently this strong support for Harris is apparently being driven largely by women, largely offended by not only what the Supreme Court has done, but what the state of Iowa has now done in the aftermath of the court striking down Roe versus Wade and imposing very strict abortion bans, something like, I think, a ban on abortions beyond 6 weeks. And apparently this is being driven by women, not just young women, but women of all ages who are really outraged. Now, you sort of add a percentage or two of outrage to the women's vote in, the blue wall states, Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, the southern states that are at issue, Georgia and North Carolina, and the southwestern states that are at issue, Arizona and Nevada. And boy, this could really make a difference. Now, you're right, this is an outlier, but extremely reputable poll and pollster over the years. Trump won Iowa, I believe, by 8 points in 2020. So if there's anything to this poll whatsoever, this could be huge news.
I also want to get your read on the way Donald Trump has sort of ended this campaign. We played a moment ago, the comments he talked about Mexico. He's talked about Kamala Harris. He's talked about recently, the protective shielding in front of him, because of assassination attempts, and then referencing that, if anyone shoots at him, it might hit the press first, said to be joking by his campaign. What is the closing argument for Trump here, Larry?
It is the most astonishing thing, this divergence in the two closing arguments. I mean, his argument is essentially American carnage underway. It's only going to get worse. He's the only person who can solve it. But wherever you look, and by the way, most of what he's saying is nonsense. But he is saying wherever you look, things are out of control. Inflation out of control. Not true. Crime out of control. Not true. The border out of control. Well, he himself struck down a bipartisan compromise to fix the border when he ordered House Republicans to back away from very strong legislation. And he's also talking about the fact that the election is already rigged and Trump supporters have to go to the polls. And contrast that with what Harris is saying, both in her speeches and in her ads that I noticed ran during the NFL games over the weekend and other popular shows. She is all about a bright future. She is all about getting rid of the hatred. She's all about coming together. Generally speaking, candidates want to end with a positive message about themselves. So this Trump message is really an outlier in terms of closing arguments, but it's not an outlier for Trump. It is Donald Trump to the core, and the only strategy behind it is to get more angry, white, non-college educated male voters to the polls. They think that there are some that they can convince who tend not to vote. We'll have to see. Is that going to be more powerful than what I just spoke about with regard to women?
Larry Haas joining us from Maryland, just across the river there from Washington. Hey, good to see you, Larry. Thanks for this. We'll talk again soon, I hope.
Absolutely, Todd. Thank you.
All right.